Welcome to the Touching into Presence podcast.
This podcast is for people who are interested in bodywork, empowerment, and somatic-based practices.
I am Nikki Olson.
I'm Andrew Rosenstock.
We are certified Rolfers.
Collectively, we're trained in various movement and bodywork therapies with an emphasis on somatic awareness and client resilience.
Through conversations, our goal is to share and explore mind-body paradigms to offer empowerment possibilities.
All right, Touching into Presence listeners. Today is going to be a different kind of show. For today's talk, Nikki and I are going to be in a conversation about Nikki's closure of the show for now. We talk about how our lives have changed since Nikki first came on as co-host and why for now the closure seems right. We talk about what might be coming down the line for the show and a bit more. So it was an emotional conversation for me as I've really enjoyed the dynamic of the two of us that we've had over the 3 years, and there's an unknown and a different future on the horizon. So I'm grateful for Nikki and how she's shown up over these 3 years, and I'm glad to have been a good friend in her from this collaboration, this podcast. I look forward to seeing where her path takes her. I'm also excited for some future plans of the show that I've been working on. So in some ways, this closure episode will actually lead beautifully into those, so I think, and time will tell. But with that, let's have a listen to the talk.
All right. Hey, podcast crew. This is Nikki and Andrew, just us today. And it's going to be a little bit of a different episode. I am coming on to have my closure around this podcast. I was invited to be a second or third guest, I can't remember right now, of Andrew's Touching into Presence podcast. And we just really clicked and had a good time. And after the conversation, Andrew had invited me to co-host with him. And it was such an honor to have been asked to that because this was during the lockdown of COVID. And it was such a great opportunity to stay connected to the structural integration community. And at that time, we had a lot of time to talk about what we're going to do, the guests that we were going to have. And we just kept on going with a nice flow with it. And I got a great friendship with Andrew out of it. Mm-hmm. And as time has gone on and we're no longer in the lockdown phase, I have come to a sense of feeling closure around my time with the podcast. And it's nothing in anything particular or any kind of issues that Andrew and I have. I really loved getting to know Andrew and having this relationship. But things have shifted a little differently for me in my life. And just, in the Rolfing 10 series, there's a beginning, middle, and end. And a lot of times the end can feel very organic. And for me, that's where I'm at. And I'm really honoring where I've been feeling that closure is coming for me with the podcast. And with that being said, I just wanted to use this opportunity to extend great gratitude to Andrew because this has been something I've always wanted to do and felt very, very timid to do it on my own because of the whole aspect of managing the technology, which Andrew has done completely. So I've had a very unique situation of being able to mostly just show up for the conversations. And also I've been of help to research guests and reach out. So there's, it hasn't just been me just showing up completely, but for sure, hands down, Andrew has been the main person of getting the ball rolling with starting the podcast. It was initially his, and I've been able to enjoy the ride. So I just want to extend again, big heart love to Andrew and gratitude and just this wonderful experience I've been able to have for, man, I think, what are we, 3 years into this?
And I think at this point, I think 69 episodes at this point, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
although one thing we've talked about is it's closure, even bringing it to the 10 series, it's closure for now. And we don't know, when someone gets a 10 series, it's sometimes a 10 series for a year or for 5 years or whatever, but people can come back. And there is an open door, as we've talked about. But I mean, you've really said it very well, which is when it started, we didn't really have a lot going on. We were in pandemic. I mean, we had things, but our practices weren't what they are now. Our lives had changed. We're both dealing with a lot outside of our practices as well. And even to get this call, which it wasn't easy to schedule. It's hard to do a lot of the scheduling. It's just things just changed. And I'll put my own. I really appreciate it. There's very little I can say that you haven't said, but I remember when you sort of were saying, "Hey, I'm not sure if this is gonna." Basically, you want to step out. As my first thought was, "Oh God, what did I do?" Just as a frail human being still working on himself, that sense of how did I, mess up? And it's not always about that. Life comes up, and we can get stuck in old patterns. And so I really appreciate. Because there was a part of me too that was like, okay, well, what's going on and how are we doing this? And I had these other ideas I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do, or I was putting them aside. And everything really organically happened. And more so, I'd say, because you really stepped up and you honored that in some way. I think I had been wanting to, and I couldn't find the way because my own insecurities. And so when you did it, it was like, oh, wow, this is great. And then that, I think of almost like a Seinfeld ending of like, when he breaks up with Jeanine Garofalo, and it's like there's a mutual breakup, and they're like, "That's impossible. That's impossible." And it's like, no, this actually has been smooth, and that's also why I say it's a closure for now. We don't know, but there isn't. It's just really it's been fluid. It's uncomfortable. I mean, even this call for me is uncomfortable for me because it's been so comfortable to be in conversation, to be your friend for so long. That there's an emotional part of me that's struggling a bit with the closure for now, as I'll call it. But isn't that such a human response?
Well, absolutely. And first of all, I think it's very fitting for the name of the podcast, Touching into Presence. And while you were having your internalization of what to do with this podcast, and same for me, it wasn't just, I had this thought and then I called you and acted on it. I had sat with it for a little while and I was like, well, is this a mood? Is this being preoccupied with things going on in my life? And after a month or two, and we weren't too heavy in podcasts because it definitely is not have anything to do with the guests we've had or anything. It's been such a joy to have learned and to be in conversation with everybody that we've been that we've had on the podcast. But it really was just honoring in the moment of touching into the presence and in the present moment. This is what kept on reoccurring, and it for now, and who knows how it will shape up. But for me, it's there. For a good while now, I think we won't have, and it's even fun to see we won't be in conversation together on the podcast. And I think, it'll be exciting what Andrew does with it, as me not being the consistent co-host as this podcast has known. The consistent person to reel me back into like, where did we just go? Come back, Andrew. Yeah. But also, I think it's too worth mentioning to the audience because Andrew and I's relationship really has been fostered through the podcast. And while we've had lots of conversations on the side, I think it's kind of fun noting you and I have only met in person
Twice.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once was around the lake, and once when we had our in-person, our one and only in-person with Jim Asher.
Yeah. And it's the one. It's the one and only because the audio, it did not come out very good. Yeah.
So, but in that, we've had such rich conversations, and I really do cherish the conversations that we had when, when we were in lockdown. And it was very important for me because I was in a very interesting place in my practice because I was just getting back into practice, building a practice after a couple of years of maternity leave. And then prior to that, I was teaching at the Institute and mentoring and really didn't have a practice when I had moved back to Colorado. So, my work was very different. And then my kids were in school full time. I had a great opportunity to join my current office mates and built up a practice and was ready to roll. And then voila, bam, shut down. And then, not knowing what the future was looking like, I completely shut down, homeschooled kids. And this was, I have internal gratitude of the offer that you presented to me. And I took it because it really kept me alive in the practice and not go into self-pity of like, oh my gosh, I just built this practice and now I can't do it. And it really kept, I really felt connected to the world with the structural integration world when I hadn't been because I was so entrenched in my early motherhood of young kids. So again, I can't, say how much I've been so grateful for that opportunity.
And same. I've been really grateful for one of the things I said before. I really didn't, and I still don't want to be a lone wolf. I like having two hosts because it keeps us from sticking. It keeps me from sticking in my own way, and I've really appreciated how you've been there to, as I've already mentioned, bring it back when I go on the tangents, but also to not be in agreement all the time. And that's what I really, to some extent, want. I want to have conversations that are uncomfortable a little bit, that are enriching, but also that we don't necessarily stay the same because that doesn't help us grow. And I even remember when we were first talking about this, your closure for now, when you had said something about like, this isn't the same as it was 3 years ago. And I don't know if I wrote it to you or if I just thought it out loud where I was like, yeah, I hope not. It's been 3 years. It's things change and we can so easily cement into, well, this is what it's been. And you were in such a different place. As you said, I had also just lost my practice. I'd been traveling for years and now wasn't able to travel and was remaking stuff. And now both of us, you have so many more roles going on in your life, practice and then personal life. And I've also got, I guess since the podcast started, I've been married. Now we have a dog, and my personal practice, my work practice is really busy, which is all great. So that with that, as we're both changing, what we're doing changes, and I hope I have some plans for what's going to come up. I'm going to try to actually have a few different sometimes guest hosts and see what that's like. And also slightly different types of talks and see what happens. And the fact of the matter is I have no idea. At some point I may stop or I may stop for a while. Or we'll see. It's fun to do this. It's fun to share, and it's fun to get feedback from people and saying, hey, this makes a difference. So yeah, I guess we will see where it goes. For right now, it's a Robert Frost fork in the road. So,
well, yeah. I know you just kind of hinted at it, but any other little glimpses of what we could look forward to, what you're presenting? No longer, since I'm not going to be a part of it. What have you been brewing in the behind the scenes?
Well, I still want to. Part of it part of it started was for really SI and embodiment for work. So I have a few. I really love some of the people give different feedback. Some people love the archival, having the old people who've been doing this work since the 60s and 70s, having them on. And I'm in a few talks with a few people. I want to have some people back on and have a different conversation because it's been a few years and see how they changed, what has changed in their ideas. I have one talk, which I think will be the next talk, where there's a guy I really appreciate his work at Presence, and he's a therapist, and we have a talk, and it's a really fun talk where I get very vulnerable in it, and I want to lean into some of those a little bit more, not necessarily about me being vulnerable, although I'm fine to do that in public, but to be about vulnerability and riding the edge of discomfort towards a place of presence, being in that space of that. And so I have a few ideas towards that where we are kind of playing in having mildly uncomfortable conversations, but safe, uncomfortable conversations, and seeing what comes up from that, because a lot of my practice has shifted from that, from being a real physical body worker to holding space in different ways and allowing nervous systems to unfold. And I'm wanting to share more of that because I see so much of our work really about that. I just wrote a small article about how, because I lose clients sometimes because I'm not physical enough with them what they want. And what I say is, well, if you can't rest on the table, there's no real point for me to put input into you because you're going to be pushing back against me. And so how do we get people to start to feel that they can actually be here? And in that. So some of it's going to kind of go in that way. And some of it is, going to be, what's arising, what is in the present, what's happening. But I am hoping to have people on who disagree with me and can show me other ways, but can have these conversations where we can both have different opinions about stuff. But at the end of the day, go have a beer or a kombucha or a soda pop or a fizzy water, whatever your choice is, together. We can sit in these awkward places and use that as a place for growth. So that's, I think, something I'm hoping to. We'll see.
Best of luck on that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, being vulnerable in public, it's great. But that's, I think, part of it is I'm hoping to mirror a bit of, and it failed. I mean, I don't know if you follow in the Facebook group, it failed pretty much miserably there. But that's, I think, because there's not a lot of space in that group. But of trying to say, hey, I'm okay to put myself in show and to be attacked or to be criticized or to be poked at. And I think I have enough agency in myself that I can hold that as a tool that people can see other ways. And it's really, even though I might be hosting it, it's not really about me, or do my best to not make it about me, but about this topic, this presence, this space, whatever that is. And so within that, hoping that there can be reframing for people to see different, to feel different, to be different. And I mean, as you said, good luck with it. I tried to do some stuff in the Rolfing forum online, and I quickly decided that this may not work. So this too, it's all a work in progress. We'll see. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Is there more you want to say before we close for now?
no, I wanted to use this opportunity to, again, send gratitude to all our guests that were on. If anybody repeat guests are listening, just how much I've enjoyed learning and being in conversation, and appreciative of the time that people took to be in conversation with us, because we got better towards the end, but man, some of those early episodes were long,
Yeah,
and totally enjoyable.
yeah.
But No, it's been such a wonderful learning opportunity and unique opportunity, and something I would not, you open, I have no idea where I'm going in the podcast world, but you definitely helped me step outside of, speaking of vulnerability, probably something I wouldn't have done initially on my own if someone didn't ask me. And I'm so appreciative, because this, while it was definitely a desire of mine, it also felt super scary. And that second episode that we had with me being the guest, it just felt so natural, and just being in conversation with you. And it was just so fun. And all the conversations have been so fun. And yeah, there's been times, I mean, speaking to just what you were talking about, that, Andrew and I definitely have not always agreed about some points of views. And I felt like we were able to contain that a little bit through, well, mostly, I think we were successful at it in our podcast. And then
I don't think we ever had any bad words. We just didn't always agree, but I think we respected the other person enough to say, all right, well, you do that and I do that. It was never like, I don't remember ever any bad words or anger. It was just, and you can correct me, maybe there was, but I don't remember it. I think there was.
You don't remember me telling you off that one time?
I wish. No, I mean, I think that
did happen.
Yeah. I think that we were able to not always agree, and it's not about agreeing. Agreeing just keeps us where we are. We're able to be in spaces and say, okay, I don't agree with you, but I respect you, and I see that that's where you are, and that's where I am right now, and that's fine. And I don't think we have enough. Like, that's one of my things that I'm trying to do more. I don't think we have enough of that in the world, and that's what I'm hoping to try to have more of that.
Well, that's for sure. That there's, of being in a place in our world, society, but I don't know. Has it always ever been that way? I mean,
no, I don't think it has. I don't think it has, but I also think we've made more strides in terms of understanding, especially how humans and nervous systems are orienting towards safety. And as we understand more about that conceptually and preconceptually, I think that there's more that can be done. And I don't think there's a lot of information out there. I think there are people who are doing it, and I want to sort of help in that way of sharing. Okay, well, we can be in disagreement and be okay. We can recognize I'm starting to feel unsafe, and because of that, I'm reacting in a way, or other. I mean, I've talked about this in calls before, where all of a sudden you notice it, probably me, Nikki, because you're with me in these. I get really excited and I go really, really up, and then all of a sudden, well, where am I in the call? I'm excited, which is good, but I'm not present anymore. I've gone into this other sort of space, and I've lost my, and I sort of learned to not have coffee before calls, partly for that, because it would take me up. But okay, well, how can I want to be in conversation. I need to be here, and it's okay to get excited. It's okay to, I think of tonic function a lot. It's okay to go up, but still keep the weight, and it's okay to go down, but still keep a bit of the height or whatever it is. So that's a bit. Yeah. All right. Well, the most important part of a Rolfing session is always the closure, and it is one of the parts that if you ask any of my clients, I sometimes don't just kick them out the door, and we'll take like 5 or 10 minutes extra to sort of be with what is. But maybe this is the point where we, I'll say I'm noticing in my body, it's uncomfortable to think about this conversation ending and this period ending. And even though I'm okay with it, there's a part of a sadness in my gut that I'm noticing that I was not expecting during this call. And I'm glad I'll have some time before my next client to grieve in some sort of way, to start that grieving process of the separation of what has been. Does it feel like a good place for closure now for you, Nikki?
Absolutely. And I think we've acknowledged that we work well, play well together. And this maybe it's the closure with you and I in this particular project of the Touching into Presence podcast, but definitely not a shut door to any other potential projects, and certainly not a closure in our friendship.
Oh, no, for sure. When I go to Boulder, you will be one of the first people I do call. And whether we go for a walk around the lake or whatnot, I'm looking forward to it.
And I'd probably prefer white wine than soda pop.
Okay. Yeah. I was picking fizzy. I was picking fizzy stuff within that. So white wine's fine. And if I'm in Boulder, I will, probably have a beer, even though I don't drink very much. But there's just great breweries out there. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to that wine, beer, whatever combination when it comes. And for now, I'm grateful for all you have done with this show, with that time together, and really grateful for our friendship. And am really grateful for when you do call me on my shit. It's very appreciative. And so please feel free, publicly saying this, feel free to call me on my shit. Even when not on the show.
Well, I can be pretty honest. So
I know, I appreciate that. So, all right. Let's do it for now. And
big love and hug to you, Andrew, and best of luck with what you do with the future of the podcast.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for listening to us at Touching into Presence. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate it if you'd leave a positive review of the podcast and subscribe to it through the platform of your choice. When you do this, it really helps other people find us, and we greatly appreciate your support. We look forward to hearing back from you and seeing you on our next conversation at Touching into Presence. Bye for now.